Batman and Superman: Battle of the Super Sons is a DC animated movie that was released in 2022 and is directed by Matt Peters. It sees the son of Superman and Lois, Jonathan Kent, an 11-year-old boy, developing powers just like his father, and this comes at a time when disaster is about to strike the world, forcing him to team up with the son of Batman, Damian Wayne, an assassin who formerly used to work for the League of Assassins under Ra's al Ghul. Two very different characters. One a, dare I say, psychotic killer. The other one as with Clark Kent, a bit of a naive farm boy. The question is, of course, can these two get their stuff together to team up in order to, one, save their fathers, and two, defeat the alien being known as Starro, which many will now know having seen James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Now, these DC animated movies can be a bit hit and miss at times. I think there's quite a few that are really solid, and there's some that are just standouts. But there can be quite a few that are just like, okay, probably don't need to see that one again. This one was not one of them, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about it, really, just because if you haven't seen it, I suggest doing so, especially if you're a fan of Batman or Superman. I wasn't particularly looking forward to this one, just because it focused on two characters I wasn't overly fussed about. Not Batman and Superman, obviously. They're my two favourite comic book characters ever when it comes to the superheroes. But Damian Wayne, never been that big of a fan of as a character from the comic books. Jonathan Kent, a character that is fairly modern, you know, he's not been around that long. I can't say that I read Superman comic books, but you know, everything I know about Superman comes from other media, and obviously the TV show Superman and Lois, I've seen Jonathan Kent there, and I know he's a pretty new addition to the world of Superman, and I was never sure how I felt about that, though I do like Superman and Lois. Now, that being said, I come to this not really expecting much, kind of thinking it's probably, I hoped for at least a 3.5 star film. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. I think there's a bit of confusion when it comes to these DC animated movies, because they're all tagged with a different label. Some of them are just a DC animated movie, and some of them are tagged with the DC Universe movie logo. I think there's a couple of others, but yeah, this is not to be confused with the DC Universe stuff, of which like Batman The Long Halloween was recently a part. It's a standalone piece. You don't need to see anything else to know what's going on. It stands on its own. You can come to it completely fresh without seeing any of the other DC animated stuff. And it works really well. Now, the animation for this is really good. They've developed some new techniques that, I'm not saying they developed them for this movie. I don't know if they've been used in animation elsewhere, but certainly it's the first time they've used it for the DC stuff, which is that rather than using these kind of 2D backgrounds that have been drawn, they're able to build the environment in a computer so that you get like a 3D environment, and then you can draw the 2D animated characters within that environment. And I think it just really makes the action come alive a lot more. It feels a bit more kind of tactile. I think the writing for the characters, particularly of these two central characters, Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent, is really great as well. They don't rush things. Like, it's not just about let's get them together as quickly as possible and then send them on an action-packed adventure in which we blow a load of stuff up and I don't care. No, they spend time at the beginning of the film with Jonathan and his father, Clark, and the Kent family dynamics, you know, with Lois in there as well, looking after their son, trying to teach him. And so you get a sense of who this kid is. And then on the flip side of that, when we see Damian Wayne and his interactions with Batman and how he interacts with Jonathan Kent, some really genuine, funny moments come out of that, where actually, and I have to say, throughout this whole film, the humour lands. A lot of comic book movies these days, particularly live action stuff, a big problem with them is that a lot of the humour just doesn't land. It feels like they're just, we've got to go have a serious moment, a gag, serious moment, a gag, and it becomes a little bit tiresome. Whereas the humour here works, and I think that's because all of the humour comes out of building the character. It's not just, oh, let's just throw a gag in. No, when they do a gag, it tells us something about the characters, such as like this moment when Damian Wayne pushes Jonathan Kent down a crevice in the Batcave to test whether or not he will fly. It's a funny moment. It made me laugh, made me howl when it happened, but it tells us something about who Damian Wayne is, about how he views other people, and his outlook on life. I think the voice cast across the board is really good. They're all perfectly cast for their characters. Laura Bailey in particular was great as Lois Lane. I think she really embodied that character, the voice that, you know, when I heard that voice coming out of that animated character, that was just Lois Lane to me. It was great, and that is the same for most of these characters. Troy Baker is really fitting in well now as Batman. You know, for the longest time, and still, I would say, you know, Kevin Conroy, he was the go-to when it comes to animated Batman. He was the voice of Batman, still is the voice of Batman, and anyone who steps up to the plate to take on that role in an animated capacity has got the work cut out for them. But you know, Troy Baker's done it a few times now, and I'm getting used to his voice. Would I still prefer Kevin Conroy? Of course I would. But yeah, he's great in the role. Travis Willingham plays Superman, and I will say that while I thought he was good as Superman, like I say, all the cast is really great. Of all of the cast, his, for me, just I found Superman just felt a bit too lofty, which I don't know if that just sounds a bit stupid, or some people might think, well, yeah, that's perfect, surely, because it's Superman. But yeah, I don't know. For me, just a little bit too lofty. Now he's voiced Superman quite a few times in these animated movies, and that's not something that's ever stuck out to me as, you know, as an observation. So I don't know if it was just this time around for whatever reason. So I love the pairing of the two characters. I love the humour that comes out of their interactions. I love the relationship dynamics between them and their respective fathers. There's a strange but touching moment towards the end of the film involving Damian and Bruce, or Batman. You know, Batman being this character that we all know as this brooding, dark, kind of repressed human being who probably isn't the easiest person to be around, and probably the least that you would expect to show any kind of love. Yeah, there's a moment towards the end that was, you know, it didn't feel out of character, but it felt touching, and it was just like, it was good to see. It was good to see it coming from Batman, being a lifelong Batman fan. It's nuggets like that when they come that just hit a bit harder. Starro made for a really good villain as well. You know, he's the kind of villain who can take over other people, so that instantly gives him minions for you to fight. But when he can take over members of the Justice League, that makes his minions rather powerful. And, you know, just how our two young men are going to face up to that is really what it's all about. You know, like, are they up to the challenge? When everyone else is telling them that they're just kids and they're not quite ready, can they do it? I think the answer to that question is probably going to be pretty inevitable for anyone who's ever watched a superhero movie. You know, they're not reinventing the wheel here. But the question is, do they do it in a very entertaining way that's well written, well acted, where the action is very entertaining to watch? And the answer to all those questions is yes, they do. It's a really, really good DC animated movie. One of the best from the stable for me personally, which was quite a surprise because I wasn't expecting it to be. But yeah, That's my thoughts on Batman and Superman, Battle of the Super Sons. But what about you? Have you seen it? If so, what did you think about it? Leave your comments down below. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.